And I was trying to fit into this box of being like, I'm a good enough stand-up comedian, I'm a good enough musician, I'm a good enough blah blah blah, and trying to sort of rather than carve out a space for myself and my own voice, just trying to fit into these molds. And it wasn't until I went to Fringe for the first time in 2017, I think, that I saw people really being their authentic selves doing stuff that was so off the wall. And I thought, oh, what am I doing? Why am I trying to fit into these other molds that are other people's preconceived notions of what is funny and what should be done on stage rather than what I think is funny and what I want to do on stage.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today's chat is a real treat. I'm obsessed with Caitlin's mentality and motto on life, in that she embraces what scares her and always looks to improve. You'll soon hear about it. It's brilliant and a powerful motivator. I got the chills hearing about it. It's an awesome way to be. Anyway, I love this chat and I reckon you will as well. So let's get into it. Caitlin Cook wears many hats. She's a comedian, singer-songwriter, artist, writer, director, producer, and designer. She began writing songs at the age of 4. She's not your conventional stand-up comedian. She's taken the stage all across US, Canada, Europe, and Oceania at top-tier venues like the Meltdown in Los Angeles, Union Hall in Brooklyn, and Bill Murray in London, comedy clubs like Comedy on State in Madison, the Comedy MIX in Vancouver, and Dead Crow Comedy in Wilmington, some of the best festivals in the world, and even dimly lit basements, strangers' living rooms, and even a houseboat once. She also has 2 other successful musical comedy albums, Singer-Songwriter and Betty Pitch, which she recorded after writing 250 songs a day during the pandemic. A fierce champion of mixed media and genre-bending works of art, Caitlin has carved out a space for herself smack dab in the center of the Venn diagram between comedy, music, and theater. She also has a number of shows now out called The Writing on the Stall, and it sounds brilliant. We talk about it. There are links in the episode notes below if you're in London, Edinburgh, and around the world. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about leaving one's comfort zone, doing what scares you mentality, stage fright, sound healing, songwriting, not fitting in the traditional comedy box, her brand new shows in Edinburgh, graffiti, and a unique take on musical comedy, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny and Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. Okay, I reckon we'll start with sound healing. We were just talking a little bit about how you do sound healing, and you said that you conducted one for 4 to 6 hours. Please explain how you do that.
Wow, where do I start? Basically the format of the evening is I have this whole studio below my apartment with my fiance that I wish I could show pictures somehow, but it's filled with instruments and
Cool.
very cool colored lights and rugs and little backjack like floor mats, and anyone that's a participant sort of signs up ahead of time and comes to one of our sort of usually monthly sound healing ceremonies where we serve psychedelic tea, and people come and set their intentions, and then we have a sound healing ceremony that there's no casual conversation, and we navigate through like songs, sounds, and silence. There's 4 to 6 hours is, I guess, a long time if you're just doing sound healing.
Yeah.
But about halfway through, we do a second sip, and it's built in the format of an ayahuasca ceremony.
Interesting.
So it takes after that tradition, and we usually start with a 15-minute silent meditation and then navigate through like chimes and singing bowls and kalimbas and some very cool instruments that people don't normally interact with. And then we'll move into a lot of ayahuasca traditional songs or mantras in other languages to not disturb anyone that's like, I don't know, processing anything a bit more deeply with English words that kind of like leads them on a journey of what we're singing rather
Yeah.
than what they're working on. But eventually we do move into songs that are in English, which is a combination of our own music and some more sort of traditional love lights kind of songs. And eventually we open the space out for anyone that wants to offer a song of their own. And officially, after about 4 to 6 hours, we'll close ceremony and we just keep playing on music through the rest of the night. It's just a bit more conversational and lively and less reverent sometimes after ceremony closes. And we have like a soup and everybody eats. And sometimes we'll have a big fire pit and do s'mores and just play music till 4, 5, 6 a.m. in the morning.
Okay, so it's not, first of all, this is amazing. I love my sound healings. I was telling you, I don't think I've ever done more than 2 to 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
This is crazy. And I like how you're like, it's 4 to 6 hours, and then we continue to 5 a.m. It's a lot longer. That's like a marathon. That is a, how did you get into this?
Through my fiance, actually, who um, and is also my like writing partner, creative partner. We write a lot of music together. He directed my show. I've directed his shows. And has trained in ayahuasca and
Oh,
psychedelic sound healing for, almost a decade now.
wow.
So I kind of was introduced to this sort of work through him. And to be honest, I grew up in Southern California and I was raised by a lot of like logical, intellectual Jews who do not believe in sort of like the woo-woo sound healing kind of approach.
I can relate in some regards.
Yeah. But I've started to find this kind of work really, I don't know, soothing to my anxiety and just powerful to like literally just put a screen away for that chunk of time. And especially living in a major city, just step away from all the distractions and simply sit in my own head and work through my own thoughts and be with myself in a collective. So no one's talking to each other. Everyone's sort of like in their own bubble with their own blanket and their eye mask and their journal. And it's just really powerful to be around people who are laughing or crying or yawning or look like they're just curled up getting ready for a little slumber party while you're doing your own work, and then afterwards everyone sort of shares what they're going through. And I don't know, it's just one of the most unique and like healing experiences that I get to regularly have in my life. So
I love it. Just the sound healing is genius. And then you've added all the other stuff as well. You mentioned it's
mhm.
helped your anxiety. What
Yeah.
else? How's it helped? Like what I know you mentioned you can like slow down and you can like take things in and journal and process your emotions. Have you noticed a big shift since when you started doing this to where you were before?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like I used to have debilitating stage fright. I had a lot of insecurities around my singing voice. And just in general, I would spiral on various thoughts or memories from my past. And I don't think it's just the mushrooms. I think the way mushrooms work is super interesting in the brain of connecting different parts of the brain that didn't have neural pathways in between them before. And you're able to make connections between these more difficult memories, which is why it's so helpful for vets and people with PTSD and everything. But I also think just yeah, I think we're really inundated in this day and age with constant distraction. We're not bored ever. And it's really nice to be bored and sit in your own body and just process. And I don't think we allow ourselves the time to do that unless we really take it, unless you're someone that likes to go out into nature and go camping, or forces themselves to leave their phone at home, or just is really conscientious about how they spend their time. But certainly my ability to just sit with myself, to let myself be bored, to like really own my singing voice, especially. There's something interesting about the way that you sing when you're on psychedelics or you're in a sound healing space where it's not performative and it's not about sounding good. It's about just letting go of control.
Cool.
Um, which I find particularly interesting because my fiance is a Broadway guy. He was in Book of Mormon for a long time, and so we get a lot of Broadway people come sit with us, and they are
Oh,
so
no.
trained and taught to sing a specific way. Bless you.
Thanks.
And you can't really sing that way in ceremony. Your voice just doesn't allow you to have that level of control or perfection. So there's something really freeing about finding your voice.
Oh, that's so nice. I guess it's you're there for the highest good of the ceremony. Like you put yourself kind of to the side and just to
Hmm.
maximize the healing. I really like
Yeah.
that. Isn't it also wild because we've had sort of similar upbringings in that sense? Do you think that the Caitlin, when she was going through school, would be, and saw the Caitlin now, would be able to process that you're doing these ceremonies?
No. No, I think I'd be very confused by myself. What are you
Go
doing?
on.
You're doing drugs. You're doing drugs regularly. And my fiance and I often joke about that the idea is come do drugs in our basement. It won't be fun. We'll have to sit through uncomfortable. We're the part about drugs that are fun. We're not doing that part. We're doing the part where we cry and we work through the sad things and we get uncomfortable and wow, we feel really good at the end, but it's not your recreational
We're,
experience.
we're doing we're doing the work. I don't do any recreational mushrooms, but I do. Even ashwagandha is not a mushroom. Lion's mane,
Hmm.
reishi,
Hmm.
and I don't know if it works the same way, but I've noticed a big difference in my health from taking those. You,
Yeah,
you're probably
very
laughing.
cool.
You're probably laughing at me
No,
because they might not be this. I just hear mushrooms, but I love them. And one of my friends has started a mushroom business selling them, and he's been doing so well. And all these health food stores want to, get his
that's really
mushroom.
cool.
Yeah.
No, I think the mushrooms in general, whether they're psychedelic or not, are super powerful, and they've been growing with us since humanity, since way before humanity even existed, really.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of power there.
I agree. We are big proponents. We should start our own mushroom business. Can people in New York go and do your ceremonies? Are they to the
Yes.
public? Oh, they are.
They are. It's like I don't know how much I should be talking about this publicly, but I am, so who cares? Like mushrooms are decriminalized here,
Oh,
so it's
nice.
not like it's super like out there advertised, but if you listen to me on podcasts or you dig a little bit, it's right there. And we open the space to anyone that's in New York, and then often if you're outside the city, once a solstice, we'll go up on the Hudson and rent a big Airbnb and do like a larger retreat for the weekend, which is really fun. And then there are tons of circles out on the West Coast, and especially in Southern California as well, that do ayahuasca and mushroom circles. There's just not that many out here on the East Coast, so we realized that fairly quickly, and that we had to start our own.
This is your market, your niche, on top of a lot of things. You also
Yes.
mentioned, something which I find really interesting, the stage fright, which I know you've had a bit of a journey behind it as well.
Hmm.
And you have this mantra, which is "Do what scares you." Can you tell me a little bit
Yes.
more about it and how it relates to stage fright?
Yeah, it's a mantra I've had for a long time that's sort of built into this show that I've been touring for quite a while. The Writing on the Stall. It's a theme throughout that show, and it's a theme throughout my life, which is anytime my anxiety gets really overwhelming and I feel so scared that I just don't want to do anything at all. I think about the worst case scenarios. And if the worst case scenario is not that bad, if I'm simply like not doing something because it's scary, then I force myself to do it anyway. Whether that's like traveling to a foreign country where I don't speak the language alone, or asking someone out, or um, scuba diving or anything, even if it's really tiny that just puts you outside of your comfort zone, I think it's just like it, first of all, you get that rush of adrenaline, like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that thing. Cool, I'm
Mm.
so powerful. But also, it's just the best life experiences. Like, even if you don't end up liking the thing that you took the risk on, you learn something new about yourself every time. And I just think it's worth it. It's uncomfortable, but I think when we get too comfortable and complacent, then I don't know, we're just missing out on a lot of stuff that life has to offer.
I agree. You should get a TED Talk. This is one of the many reasons that I wanted to talk to you. I love this. How do you discover this, especially at such a young age? You've been applying this for a while. It's not a lot of us have these thoughts, and then it's even too scary in our mind to entertain it. But you're like, no,
Hmm.
I just want to do it. Did you hear it from somewhere? Was there like a voice in your head, or you're like, I'm not living the path that I wanted? Like something, it doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, I can see you.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean there's a couple reasons. I don't want to dig into this too much, but I got into a like fairly traumatic car accident when I was 17 that is a part of the my show as well. And it was just one of those like really before or after moments in my life. And um it was a moment where I faced how fleeting life is. And it just made me go, life is too short to be scared to not experience it. And also, I think just in the way I was raised by a bunch of like Jewish atheists, basically, and then learning as a kid about death and like what Jews think about the afterlife or lack thereof, rather, and um, and just the power that each moment of this life has. I just from a really young age was like, this is all we got. And like, there is no sense, as much as my anxiety really takes over sometimes, there's just no sense in letting it control my day to day and the choices that I'm making. And anytime I start to feel my anxiety get more power over me, I go, I got to shake this off somehow. I got to do something to conquer it.
Cool. But you know how rare that is as well. Like it's as I said, it's one thing to have the thoughts, but then to actually act on it, it's brilliant. And I know in that moment we won't talk about it, but you got this kind of like near death experience. A
Hmm.
lot of people can let that fear and that trauma control them, and no judgment whatsoever. But it sounds like you're like, no, I'm not going to allow this to ruin my life. I still find that really interesting. It's also amazing through an experience like that that you can come out, inverted commas, the right words is not better person, but you can come out and like have a great lesson and use that to move forward in your life as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something I've grappled with for a long time, and of course that's why I've written it into the show, and it's just become a huge before after segmenting my life. But yeah, I think that's the only thing you can do, otherwise you let this negative thing swallow you and change you in this really awful way. And I just went, no, I'm not doing that. But it hasn't been all fun and games. Like certainly my
Mm.
stage fright wasn't something that I just got on stage once and was like, it's over. It doesn't bother me anymore. Sometimes it still creeps back in. Um, and I remember having a panic attack the first time I went scuba diving, and then I got a master's degree in underwater archaeology and was scuba
Oh,
diving all the time. And then very recently, like 2 years ago, I went scuba diving again and had another panic attack. It just like anxiety comes in waves, and sometimes things scare me that I've done a million times, and I just keep trying to push myself to keep doing it, to keep facing those fears.
I have so many questions. I also want to know from the judgment side because it's pretty cool. You have the panic attack, you do it anyway.
Hmm.
You do your masters, which we'll get into. Then you come back, you have another panic attack. What's the judgment and self talk? It sounds like you're able to, flip the switch fairly easily and go like it's okay.
Oh man, it's hard sometimes though. You get stuck in this oh man, you're so stupid. Like why couldn't you do
Mm.
this? Like what are you freaking out about?
Normal
And
human emotions.
normal human emotions. It's so hard to feel. Um, but yeah, I think it's just about forgiving yourself for having feelings at all. and not letting them become a larger story.
Oh, I
I've
like that.
been really working on that lately. That was one of my intentions yesterday for ceremony of like, it is okay to go, I'm uncomfortable, I don't like this, I'm scared, I'm jealous, I'm annoyed, or I'm angry, and it doesn't make me a jealous person or an annoyed person or it doesn't define who I am. It's just a feeling.
Yes, you've obviously done a lot of work on yourself. I would imagine there's been a lot of healing along the way. Anything, actually, we'll get into the healing side, but what within this, I know you had the body shaking and you were scared of crowd work, which we're talking about,
Hmm.
but you actually did something about it, and that was getting up on stage. I think you're
Hmm.
also scared of crowd work, so you got up every day. You did an open mic to help with the stage fright, I believe, and
Yeah.
then
Hmm.
at another time you got up and actually spoke to the crowd. Two
Yes.
terrifying things. Tell me
So scary.
everything. It's amazing.
Yeah, when I had my previous boyfriend is a stand-up comedian, and I'm still very good friends with him, and so
Oh, no.
grateful that when he first met me, he knew about my sort of mantra: if something scares me, I have to do it. And he started hearing me play these like funny musical comedy songs. And he was like, "You should get up on stage and do these." And I said, "Oh, no, 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 it's not for other people, it's just for me." I gave every excuse of the book, and at some point he was like, "It sounds like you're just scared, and like if something scares you, you
Ooh.
got to do it." So he dared me, and this is back in Chicago in 2013. I got up and I did an open mic, and I was shaking so much I had a weird vibrato like in my voice because it I just was shaking like a little leaf. But I knew either I had to get up and like do exposure therapy to get over this fear and just do it over and over and over again, or I wasn't gonna conquer the fear. Because it's not just about doing the thing once, it's about not being afraid of it anymore.
Yeah.
So I got up every night that week and did open mics and started getting up on stage as much as possible. And it lasted for a long time. And still occasionally will creep back in, but I just am able to breathe through it and go, you've done this a million times now. What's so scary about
Just
it?
building that muscle memory of getting up every day as well. It just
Yeah,
becomes like automatic in a sense.
totally. Because your brain, or at least my brain, goes, what are you doing? You don't know how to talk into a microphone. You don't know how to play guitar. You're going to forget your own song lyrics. You're going to look stupid in front of everybody. And then as long as I'm able to go, you just did this last night and you're fine, then it's
Cool.
totally okay. Um, And oh, you asked another question. What was it? Oh,
The crowd
about
work.
the crowd work. Yeah. Yeah, so crowd work always scared me as well. I like a plan. I like feeling not overly scripted, but I like knowing what I'm talking about. And that also helped me get over my stage fright at the beginning of knowing exactly what I was going to say or sing and knowing that that joke always works and improving upon that or whatever. So it was scary to like leave that script and leave the plan up to the audience and have to riff on that and talk to them and open that up. But I wrote it into this show, this
Oh,
show
nice.
is called The Writing on the Stall, and it's all about bathroom stall graffiti. And the show literally starts with me like coming into the bathroom, which is where the show is set. There's a toilet on stage. We're in a dive bar bathroom and I pee with quotation marks. There's a sound effect. I pee in the toilet, and then I realize that there's no toilet paper, and I ask the audience for toilet paper, and the show cannot continue until someone brings me something. And then I start to like world build with that person and with the audience a bit of talking about the regulars out at the bar that we were just in and what song they were singing in karaoke. And I just build the world a little bit with them
I love
and
that.
then throughout the rest of the show, we'll get really confessional, and I treat them like we're women bonding in a bathroom, as women do, of just complimenting each other's outfits and sharing deep dark secrets, and just kind of like having that moment with the audience. And it's different every time. There's still a structure to the show. There is a script and there's songs structured in at different places and there's a QLab slide deck behind me, so it has to be structured, and yet I allow the audience to really dictate parts of the show, and I've finally gotten over that fear of talking to them, which is really lovely because they're just people. They're not so scary.
Still, there's layers here, and we'll talk about your shows that are coming up because I really like what you're doing with writing on the store. Very unique. But there's layers. So it's one thing, you've kind of found your niche and you get over mostly getting up on stage and having stage fright. You could kind of just stop there. I've kind of done it. I don't need to do any more. I've done it.
Hmm.
But then the next layer to improve your comedy and yourself, you go,
Yeah.
okay, I want to work on crowd work because you don't have to do crowd work. You could,
No.
but so from all the research and getting to know you now, it seems like you still got this drive to improve. Like there's no like plateauing with you. And that's very rare because a lot of people, it doesn't matter if you're a comedian or something else, when we kind of hit a level, we can
Hmm.
kind of just want to like cruise there or I'm good enough or it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. I'd love to know more about that.
Honestly, I don't know if you experience this, but it gets boring when you just do the same thing over and over again. And the best way to not be bored anymore is to be scared, I guess, is to challenge yourself and do something new. And sometimes I'm lucky that I have a lot of different creative pursuits that I really feel fulfilled by. So sometimes that's as simple as, okay, I'm going to do this on electric guitar, or I'm going to learn some new chord progressions, or do this in open tuning, or, challenge myself musically. Sometimes there was a time when I was getting over my stage fright that I thought, I'm using the music stuff as a crutch. I need to prove to myself that I can just do stand up. I'm going to leave the instruments at home, and I did that for a while. And that was scary. And then eventually I just felt like, you know what? I feel like I'm cutting off my arms. Now I'm just like everybody else doing stand up, and I should bring back the thing that I love the most, that I love watching other people do, and that comes the most easily to me. Um, but yeah, I think it's a balance between doing what works and doing what comes easy and playing to your natural strengths, and also going, I want to get better at this thing, and this is cool, and I like when someone else does this, and how do I do that? um I think I've seen some comedians that have the same set that they've had for 20 years and it kills, and that's so cool. And also I could never be that person. I think I'd get bored.
Yeah, I would imagine I was the same. Not that I do that, where you do, and there's nothing wrong with this whatsoever. You work the same jokes or the same song or whatever. You do it for
Hmm.
so long. There's still that passion and excitement that you need,
Yeah.
and maybe they do that. Who knows? It
Hmm.
just that's also one reason that I don't want to do. I don't want to do the same thing. Like I like to do a lot of different things as well. It just wouldn't work for
Yeah.
me. We'll pigeonhole the stand up because I think this is really unique as well. Just want to finish
Hmm.
this point. When you were doing the open mics, every single day, that's scary. This is not something you've done before. What did
Yeah.
you notice about yourself? It would have brought up a lot of emotions. You would have learned a lot about yourself. Is there anything that springs to mind? You're like, that's really interesting, or I'm actually really good at this, or
Man, wow, it was so long ago. But I think it was that even back then I was doing something different, and I judged myself for it. I was doing a lot of like both music open mics and comedy open mics. Some that were just pure stand up, some that were more variety. And there wasn't anyone else doing quite what I was doing. And yet also I was thinking, oh no, I'm just another girl with a ukulele, or like with a guitar, singing a silly musical comedy song, and God, people must be rolling their eyes. I'm being so twee. Like, um, I just thought I was being hacky, and I think part of that I realize now was some of my own insecurities, and part of that was like other people's insecurities that I was projecting, or that they were projecting onto me. Of like, now I realize the comments that I get from other stand-ups sometimes in green rooms is not because they think musical comedy is bad. They just can't play music.
yeah, it's a
So,
jealousy in that regard.
yeah, a
Yeah,
little bit. Um, but also I think I just needed to like learn what my own voice was. I think maybe like my own insecurity was kicking in because I was worried I was like, all of the, uh, ukulele girls of that era. which I feel like I couldn't name you a specific one, but I feel like there was this kind of like trope. And I think I just needed to find what my own voice was so I could own it rather than imitating my influences in other people.
That's okay. That's so awesome. And it's also really interesting with stand up, reading between the lines. I'm sure there are a lot of people, making comments and, those insecurities were projected onto you and you probably had the insecurities as well, obviously.
Hmm.
And then, a lot of stand ups, for example, and I know this was a while ago, like it can be very rigid of this is what comedy is and you have to fit in this box. And
Yes.
I kind of love that you know, you did stand up, even though it may have been for external reasons. But I love that you did it, tried it, and then realized, you know what, fuck this. I don't actually, and I know you'd still do jokes and stuff,
Hmm.
but you're like, no, I don't actually need to fit in this mold. I'm going to work on my strengths. Obviously, I still want to improve all the stuff that you're saying, but it kind
Yeah.
of put you back to yourself. It didn't steer
Yeah.
you away for too long. That's really, really interesting. Do you?
I think it was Fringe the first time that I really realized that as well was I think there's more of a sense in the US, I guess, of like fitting into specific boxes of what comedy is. And um, also my previous boyfriend, Sean, who was the one who dared me to do the open mics in Chicago, he is an amazing stand-up and one of those people that's like a comics comic that people might not necessarily know his name outside of comedy. Some people do if they're like real good comedy nerds, but he's known by almost all stand-up comedians and respected by them. And
Cool.
so I think my insecurities came in of just being like, okay, I'm a woman entering into this space that's like very male dominated, and I have an instrument, and I'm also Sean's girlfriend, and I'm battling all these preconceived notions.
Yeah.
And and I was trying to fit into this box of being like, I'm a good enough stand-up comedian, I'm a good enough musician, I'm a good enough blah blah blah, and trying to sort of rather than carve out a space for myself and my own voice, just trying to fit into these molds. And it wasn't until I went to Fringe for the first time in 2017, I think, that I saw people really being their authentic selves doing stuff that was so off the wall. And I thought, oh, what am I doing? Why am I trying to fit into these other molds that are other people's preconceived notions of what is funny and what should be done on stage rather than what I think is funny and what I want to do on stage. And so I started slowly inching towards that, and I wrote my first Fringe show, and I went to Fringe every year after that, and really just
Oh, nice.
slowly worked towards really refining my own voice and what I wanted to do on stage and what I thought was funny. Um, and it was still very interesting because I would tour with my ex, and he would tour at a lot of different kinds of venues. He does a lot of like long form storytelling stand up, but it was also at a lot of comedy clubs where I had to really hone my joke writing because if I was going to be a woman at a comedy club with a 2 drink minimum in the middle of America and bring a guitar and have a projector behind me, then I better be funny. And so I'm really grateful for that time because it made me a better comedian. And yet, also, when we sort of stopped touring as frequently together, then I was able to even shed a little bit of that and go, actually, I think I still do comedy clubs fairly regularly, but I think a lot of my work now belongs more in like small theaters and sometimes like music venues. And it's fun to figure out where some of my work does better. Sometimes it's like a creative performing arts space, and sometimes it's a music lounge, and sometimes it's a comedy club, but it's often a small theater now.
That's so nice. And I like how you're grateful for the experience. Obviously, there's some things
Mhm.
that are unfortunately out of our control that we wish didn't exist in the world. But, kind of go through all of that and with your mindset where, you want to be the best that you can. I think that's really
Mhm.
unique. And to,
Thanks.
have your own voice. And I'm sure, I don't know if this applies to you, but I've had a few people that have done musical comedy. I had
Hmm.
Ricky Lindholm. I've had from
Oh,
Australia
cool. Yeah.
Tripod. I don't know if you
Hmm.
know them, but they were like 20 plus years here in Australia, killing it.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's can be very hard to kind of, be put in a box,
Hmm.
whether it's with management or representation, because they're like, oh, but it's not traditional stand-up, or it has to be this, or you're not that, or you, and that
Yeah.
can kind of be a bit of a mind fuck because we think we need to go this way, because we need to live, we need to sell tickets, we need all of that. But at the same time,
Sure.
you're doing it because you like it. And, You're not
Yeah.
just doing it for the money. So have you had that? Yeah, I can see you nodding.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think that's so funny too, because it's like, who's defining those boxes of genres is the industry. It's not the performers. It's the agents and the managers and the people booking late night and the people who decide what's going on the streaming services that go, oh, we don't know what category to put this in, and you need to be more like this, or you need to do something like this. But they're pointing at examples of people that broke down those barriers in the first place.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's
I
always
think it's
there.
really funny that, yeah, exactly. I think it's really funny that once you prove to those people that you have followers, that you can sell tickets, that you're interesting to people, then they go, oh, well, you don't have to fit into a box. What was I thinking?
But it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. Like I would imagine, and
Yeah,
I've never spoken to Bo Berman, but I'm sure that would have been like potentially a hard sell. But now you look at it
yeah,
now and they're like, oh, just, do that. This is what I hate. And this could be a ridiculous comment. It feels like lazy marketing. If you're good at what
yeah.
you do and you're an inverted commas alternative in the best of ways, I would
Hmm.
feel like that's a great sell. Like
Yeah,
I do screenwriting and I know you have as well. And some of my scripts, they're very wacky. And it was hard for me to kind of pitch it in a traditional way. But like, no, I
hmm
don't need to because I genuinely think the one that I'm thinking of, it is so unique. Like it sells
yeah,
itself. And
yeah.
anyway, that's my rant. I can see you agreeing.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I think sometimes you just have to show people a little bit of what it is. Pitching is so hard, and proving to people that you are worth their attention or money is very strange. And yet once you break down some of those barriers, it's really cool to go, see, I did it. See, people want this. And I knew it all along, but it takes years to get there.
Very interesting. So, how did you deal with the potential frustration and maybe the negative self-talk along the way? Because you believe in yourself. I could see your
Oh
eyes
yeah.
roll. You believe in yourself, but then there's still a part like, why is no one? I know what I can do. Why is it not happening?
Yeah.
Like the gap.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, and like I think social media is an unfortunate like necessary tool to break through that. Like there aren't as many gatekeepers anymore, um because social media allows you to reach your audience more directly. And I think I knew, especially with the bathroom graffiti stuff, that there was something there. And I knew that from just the first song I ever wrote, which is
Oh,
the first
nice.
song in the show. That's all the lyrics are from bathroom graffiti that I'd been photographing for 10 years. And it just struck this chord whenever I would do it at shows where I would get standing ovations, or people would wait to talk to me afterwards to show me pictures of bathroom graffiti that they had been obsessed with. I was striking on this vein um, that is not, it's not my vein to strike on. Humans um, have been creating bathroom graffiti since before we were even humans. I mean, Neanderthals were cave painting, near their little toilet holes. Um, but I was tapping into something that felt really universal and yet overlooked. And I was putting it in this light of the light, the perspective of a song. It's a lyric, it's a piece of art. We should look a little more closely. And it just struck this chord in this way where I went, there's something here. And I think I have so many photos that I could write a million more of these songs.
Nice.
Um, but it still took a while. I think it took it takes a long time to figure out how a show works. And this show in particular, because I was challenging myself with crowd work, I needed audiences to like really devise the piece with them. And there were certainly like not so great reviews at the beginning, and things that weren't clicking, and audiences that didn't get it. And it took a while to figure out how to infuse my own story with the show, and have an arc, and really make the audience feel like we're bonding in a bathroom, and this is like a moment in time where I'm their best friend for an hour, and we're sharing deepest darkest secrets. And hopefully they'll leave and look at bathroom graffiti a little more closely than before. But even it's so funny, even when I was doing the first off Broadway run, I thought I can't do this anymore. I think it's working. I believe in this piece, but it's really hard to sell tickets, and I had this opportunity to film the show, and that's why I decided to do the off-Broadway run. I had some people interested that had access to a theater that wanted to film it, and I thought, I've been doing this concept for so long, and I should just film it and put it to bed and start to work on something else because it's not catching in the way I wanted it to. And then in order to film it, I decided I should run it as much as possible. Where can I do that? Okay, I'll do an off-Broadway run. It's a big risk. It's a big theater for me at the time. It's 178 seats,
Oh,
12
wow.
shows, 12 show run. I don't have a big following, and I just have to post every day and hope that something hits and I remember my goals being like, if I don't owe the theater money and I make the show better and I get it ready for filming, then that's a success.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then it really blew up on social media finally. It really struck a chord, and I ended up selling out that run, and the final song of the show went mega, mega viral, um, and I ended up canceling the filming because it just hit this vein where I had these like Tony Award winning Broadway producers coming in to talk to me, and people wanting to bring me on tour, and agents interested. And of course, all of that also fades. Like, the producers get interested in other projects, and the agents don't have time for you, and you have to keep showing them, hey, people are still buying tickets and showing up, and it's a whole rigmarole. But that was an interesting moment where it finally hit something in the zeitgeist, and it finally, I could see people's eyes light up when I did these songs in person, but it finally hit something on social media where it reached more people.
I love that, you set yourself goals, really good goals,
Hmm.
and then it happened way better than what you thought. Like
Hmm.
I love hearing stories like that, and then your goal was just to film it, and then it went so much better than what you thought again. I didn't actually need to film it. And then
Yeah.
also to know and to trust. And I know you said you almost stopped it, but you've received, or however you want to say it, this wonderful idea that you created. You've got it. And then you're like, I know it's good. I'm still going to work at it. It might not be
Yeah.
working the way, but to have that trust and to go. Because, if it's not working a few times or in the way you want, most people can just throw it away. I love
Hmm.
that you kept on going.
Oh, man. Yeah. I think sometimes you gotta go with the momentum you're feeling. I've been trying to tap into that more. I'm a hard worker, and I will push a boulder up a hill, but sometimes that's just too much work if the momentum is not with you.
Yeah.
And so I really, with the show, I would take breaks from it, and then I'd go, I'm still thinking about it. There's still something I haven't quite cracked, and I'd return to it. And I think the most helpful thing that happened for me with the show was having really good collaborators. I think
Ah,
stand-ups, and a lot of artists think that they need to do it all themselves, or it won't be as pure of a vision, or as pure of like their own voice.
yeah.
But I'm the one performing it, and I knew it was my idea, and I knew I needed outside input, especially with a show like this that was not just comedy, but music and theater and my own story. And so I'm just really grateful to like people along the way. Like Chase Brantley was my first director. He was running he went to Gallier, the clown school in France, and when he was running this theater in Athens, Georgia, where you could do a residency for a week, and he'd help you devise a show. And that's where we came up with the asking the audience for toilet paper, because he was really big on helping me, do things on stage that scared me. And also like my college roommate, Amanda Martin. She was a dramaturg for Waitress, the musical, before it went to Broadway, and is really good at just like craft and thinking through the structure of a piece and world building. And then in this last run, especially, well, AJ, my fiance, has been my director of the show for a long time now, and is just is incredible to work with. And we were friends and creative partners long before we got together, and that's really a huge foundation of us. And he brought on Allie Gordon for this last for the off Broadway debut, who he went to college with, who's an incredible like musical improviser, and she is also very good at just. I remember her listening to the show for the first time as we did like a run through, and she goes, "I know you're a person and you're complex and you're multifaceted, but I want to know who you are right away when the show starts, like we're in a sitcom. I want you to be a slightly like flatter version of yourself. Not that you can't grow from that, but we want to know who you are right away.
Interesting.
And how do we build that in? There were so many little things like that these wonderful people I worked with helped me really hone the show. I knew where I wanted it to go. I knew, especially from seeing a lot of different shows and a lot of people be really authentically themselves on stage. I knew I wanted to build that, but I couldn't have done it without that support and that help.
Okay, brilliant. And it's also quite rare in comedy, as you said, especially with stand-up. It's like me, it's just kind of you and your solo journey. That's also
Hmm.
why I haven't pursued stand-up further, because I love the
Hmm.
collaboration. That's why I do podcasts and,
Yeah,
screenwriting as well. But
absolutely.
also to be able to put your hand up and go, I think what I've got is good, but I'd like to make it better. Ego
Hmm.
wise,
Yeah,
arts, there's a lot of ego there. That's also quite rare because sometimes, like, no, it's mine. I came up with this idea. I have to do it. And I feel
yeah.
like it takes a lot of grace to be like, no, I know some great people. I've got great friends. I've got great connections. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wish stand-ups would do this more because like the truth is with stand-up, your audience is your collaborator.
Yep.
You can't do stand-up alone in your house. You can write, but like you're not going to really get a good sense of how the joke works and the rhythm of it until you put it in front of a crowd. Music is different. Music, you can write a whole song and it never has to see the light of day, but it's still a song. Um, but I think when stand-ups write together, and I've seen this on the road when people tour together and they go, "Hey, it would be a good tag for this joke," or like, "Hey, what if you put this joke right after this one?" They're doing that. They just don't realize it at the time that they're really collaborating there. And I think there's such benefit from getting an outside perspective that isn't just an audience member who's never set foot on stage before. That's someone that's doing kind of the same thing you're doing and might have a slightly different view and could really add to what you're doing.
Agreed. And it goes with you wanting to improve and grow and not let fear, which is something that
Hmm.
I could borrow as well. And you mentioned from like pushing up from the momentum side, you mentioned the agents and the managers, and sometimes when
Hmm.
you're hot, but there's a
Yeah.
small period. I assume there would have been, a lot of calls and a lot of things that, like everyone in this industry, where everyone's like, I want to work with you, and then that period kind of ends, and then you almost ghost in a sense. How did you kind of
Yeah.
navigate that?
I mean, that was tough. It was interesting to like have this wild trajectory of the show is a success if I don't owe the theater money and I make the show better to suddenly I'm going to be on Broadway and all these things that were never a goal in the first place, and then to have that be offered to me and then sort of taken away um, was difficult. And at first it made me feel like the run was a failure, and I had to like get a little perspective and go, no,
Oh,
it wasn't.
yeah, it
I
was
sold out, and
huge
my
success.
following on Instagram went from like I think like 11,000 to like at the time 150,000 in the course of a month, which was crazy.
Wow.
um but yeah, I think it's hard when we have grown up in a culture where we think there are still gatekeepers, and sometimes there are people that are going to promise you the world and then they can't deliver, and or the people that really believe in the show. Like I really do think the a lot of the producers and people that I was talking to really like would still help me build the show to a higher level. It's just that it takes a village to kind of bring something all the way there, and that the timing wasn't necessarily right. And it's just an interesting flow of going, okay, I leveled up and I'm going to actually try and enjoy this for a moment if I can,
Oh,
and then I have to keep leveling up. And what does that look like? Because right now for me, I'm still touring this show, but I'm tired of posting this content.
yeah.
It's the same songs. And and also every time I post it, it blows up again. And I go, okay, how long am I going to keep beating this dead horse? But I guess until it stops selling tickets, it's interesting to like to surf the algorithm in a way as well.
Yeah,
Um,
take advantage of it.
but yeah, but I'm excited about a couple like upcoming projects that can bring new like that newness and that new challenge. And I think it's just about, yeah, I don't know, saying like I guess it's about returning back to believing in the idea and letting it continue to get better and grow and going. No one person is going to swoop in and make all my dreams come true. Like I guess if there's going to be one person that does that, it's got to be me. I get to make my dreams come true, and I'm going to keep fighting for this in moments where the momentum is with me, and take a break and enjoy when it's not with me, and try and yeah surf that wave. But it's hard. It's a lot of ups and downs.
I was about to say, like, sort of similar with screenwriting. I'm desperate, and I had an opportunity, and thank God it didn't work out to get a TV developmental deal. And it's like, when's the one person going to buy it? But also, there's
Yeah.
other things that I can do as well, which is, less than easy at times. But I like how
Yeah.
you're like, yes, there's no one's coming necessarily to save you. You have to do stuff to get to that point.
Yeah.
It's a hard pill, but you're
I
proof of,
know.
yeah.
Can I ask why thank God it didn't work out?
I'll have to go back through the data bank because I've swept a lot of it. It was
Okay.
traumatic in the sense, I'll be careful with what I say, but I had a LA production company. Obviously, I live in Australia,
Hmm.
and they were interested in my script. I won one of the writing awards, and then
Cool.
getting to like
Okay.
speak to. I didn't hear what you said. Sorry.
Oh, so congrats.
Oh, thank you. You can say that again. No, I'm joking. And getting to know the group, I realized we weren't on the same page. And I think you've mentioned Tim Minchin before. I don't know if this is a
Hmm.
made up story, but anyway, it makes him look good. I think he was about to sign a massive deal, and then
Mm.
he saw his manager or his agent like kind of abuse a waiter, and he's like, I'm not gonna work with
Mm.
this person. I don't care how much
Hmm.
money it is. I don't want to work with those people. That was kind of a similar sense when I got to see
Yeah.
how the team were speaking, and then they
Hmm.
promise you the world, and then you're not involved in certain decisions. They told me that we were going to be doing it in UK. Didn't even tell me. I thought it was going to be in LA. I'm
Mm.
happy to do it anyway, but you know what I mean? There was
Yeah.
like, we're going to communicate and pretty much, and I think they were just trying to take the IP and do their own thing and not even include
Yeah.
me. And so many other things. But I think when you get to see someone speak to someone in a not a nice way and multiple times, you realize that that's not in line with my values. And part of that particular script is about showcasing high values and high integrity, even though it's a comedy.
Hmm.
And it was a blessing because I got to go through the whole experience. The lawyers never had this experience before. Learn what a good contract is, learn how to collaborate in
Hmm.
that sense. And although it took like 6 months and I felt quite disconnected afterwards of how do I move
Hmm.
forward, great opportunity, extremely stressful, but so brilliant that one. It also gave me a bit of social proof. As much as I
Yeah.
talk about you need to be 100% have internal confidence, it is nice to know
Hmm.
that this is worthy of being out there. And that's just what springs to
Absolutely.
mind. But I'm very grateful now for the experience, even though I don't want to go through it again in that regard.
Yeah, I definitely feel that I'm a bit more jaded with all of that stuff. But yeah, it sounds like you had a somewhat similar experience to me of just, yeah, I've learned to be a bit more picky about who I involve in my creative projects. I think there's often people that feel powerful, like they can, yeah, swoop in and make your dreams come true. And then you go, there's a lot of red flags here. I don't know if I like this person. I don't know if I actually want them involved. And it usually is a blessing to just go, I should be able to make it with wonderful collaborators. I should be
I
able to make my art happen with people that I enjoy making art with.
Isn't that like the whole point of doing all of this as well? Working,
Yeah.
obviously we want to have a lot of money and be free and do whatever we want. But,
Hmm.
the art, the creation, the collaboration, that's what drives me more than anything. And
Yeah.
with that experience, it wasn't going to be play or fun. It wasn't going to
Yeah.
be collaborative. It wasn't. So
Hmm.
now I actually have a mantra every day that if you're going to work with me, I'll just say some, I won't say all of them, but you need to be a
Hmm.
high integrity individual. You need to value creativity. You need to value play and fun. It doesn't mean like if you're in a writer's room where you're just laughing all the time. There is work, but if you don't do those three things, and there's other things as well, then I'm not going to collaborate with you. And it's hard, even though at my level, because I'm just starting out, but I don't want to live my life that way. I want to be quite picky in that regard, and I know that my shows will be much better off for it as well.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I've had the experience recently of I have all this backlog of music that I've written that hasn't been recorded, and it's actually at this point of keeping me from writing that much new stuff because there's at least like 2 or 3 albums worth of songs that need to be recorded. And the problem is that I've never found a good flow with recording that feels like songwriting. They're really different processes, but I love songwriting's my favorite thing to do. I forget to eat, I forget to sleep, I forget what time it is. I love writing a new song.
Wow.
And recording has never felt like that. It feels clinical and like you're pulling apart this song so you can record different bits to a metronome. It feels very robotic. And yet, for the first time, very recently, me and my fiance started recording in a new studio with an old collaborator of ours and like old friend of his, who's our drummer. His name's Jamie Eblin, and he's a fantastic drummer. He wrote the drum parts for Dear Evan Hansen, and he is Jason Robert Brown's drummer for all of his shows on Broadway and off Broadway. He's just very talented, and has over the past 5-6 years that I've known him has become a better and better engineer, and now has access to the studio space. So we started recording music with him there. And it is the best time I've ever had recording. It is that exact same feeling. I lose track of time. We're having so much fun. We're laughing. It feels like we're writing the song again. We're just recording it at the same time. And I'm so glad that I waited and didn't force it like I used to, of just, okay, I'll pay this person money who's just clocking into an engineering job, who doesn't care about my music, and is going to make something that's like just a facsimile, just a false version of what the song initially was, because it won't have heart, because it will have been pulled apart and not put back together in the right way again. So yeah, sometimes there's just it's a blessing in disguise of waiting around for the right people to work with.
I agree. I've had those experiences, but nothing springs to mind, but I know exactly what you mean. And also, I love that. It's something that you really don't enjoy. You find the right environment, i.e. also this person, a bit of and then you're able to make it the best thing ever. And I think that's really important, honoring one's intuition. And yes, sometimes we need to know when to work and when not to work. I don't know the balance yet. And I like that you could kind of respect that. But intuition in life, let alone creative art, even I used to be an accountant, following that, identifying like red flags and green flags is like the greatest skill. I call it a superhero power. We all have it. And it sounds like you're quite aware of like your gut reaction or your intuition as well.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to get back to it, and like certainly the mushrooms have helped with that. But I think we all have really good gut instincts and intuition, and we let ourselves like talk ourselves out of that feeling often. And I'm trying to do less of that. I'm trying to just trust what my gut is telling me.
Even like 2 examples spring to mind, like going back to my almost screenplay deal. It's almost like a bad boyfriend and girlfriend, you know, like when I'm sure everyone can relate. You're in these relationships like, oh no, they're not half bad. You know, they do these things, and then you see all these red flags and you're like, no. Same with me. I was justifying like certain behaviors from this group as well. One of my friends, he's just come out of a more toxic relationship, and it's just, you know, you feel like you have to defend the actions, and then you come out of it and you're like, why did I do that? Like, I actually identified it early, but we feel we have to. But sometimes it's important we go through it, so then we can build back the strength and the recognition as well.
Yeah, absolutely. My fiance and I often talk about sometimes you like relearning the lessons that you feel like you should already know, or the gut feelings. And like we often say, like, eventually you stop beating yourself up for having to relearn the same lessons, and you just are grateful for the reminder.
Exactly. And then hopefully it doesn't go too far. I also studied
Yeah.
kinesiology for a few years,
Hmm.
and we learned that there's layers. And I never
Yeah.
understood the layer concept because I'm like, okay, I'm just making this up. This doesn't I had this issue with a parent. I'm done. I'm
Hmm.
healed. I have no issues with family whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then another layer happens and you peel the layers and then you're like, huh. But then, maybe another instant comes later on. You're like, huh, I've actually done a lot of work in that regard. This doesn't trigger me as well. And
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
also quite hard, but we don't.
Hmm.
The layer concept has blown my mind. I thought,
Yeah.
I've worked on this issue. I'm healing. I'm amazing. Yeah, not quite like that.
Yeah. I love finishing therapy and then coming upstairs and going, I'm healed. I'm fixed. I'm all good now.
Oh, you're telling your body, so I love that.
Yeah.
Before I get back into the Edinburgh shows, I think this is also really interesting. There's a whole timeline of building up towards this show. I feel like this is like one of your great arcs, this show. But also the social media stuff you were talking about and how you wrote a
Hmm.
song a day.
Oh
Blows my
yeah.
mind. Why did you do this and what did you learn?
Why did I do it? Um, I did it because of the pandemic. I had been TikTok was still pretty new and I'd been playing around with it right before the pandemic, and I had like one really simple video blow up that
Oh,
was like really, it was a casual video. I was filming a sketch with a friend, and there was it was in an office space, and there was a box that was supposed to be soundproof, but it wasn't. And so I filmed him going in and just swearing up a storm and then coming back out and being like, did anyone hear that? And it was just very silly, but I was, I had just downloaded TikTok and I posted it, and it got like 88,000 views or
wow.
something really quickly. And I went, whoa, okay. I see the potential in this thing, but I didn't have time in my daily life to really utilize it until the pandemic. And I just went, I'm going to play around with this tool. And so the first day of sort of lockdown, I wrote a song, and I decided I need a challenge to get through this this lockdown time. And so I decided I'm going to do a song a day. And I don't
Wild.
think I really had a plan because I don't think any of us knew how long the pandemic would last. And I didn't know how long I'd be able to keep it up, but I just thought I'll do it until it starts to not feel good anymore. And eventually um I started doing different kinds of series. Like on Mondays, I would write a Monday morning upbeat, but still mostly bad news song that was like a news recap of the week, but in this like jokey, funny, upbeat way. And then Fridays, I ended up writing like a wholesome news song, and those gained a lot of traction. And I started just recording songs I'd done on stage for a long time, and just directly to the camera, and also writing new songs and playing around with mandolin that I had, and piano and guitar, and collaborations with other people. And eventually, like, it was starting to get a little tiresome and things were opening back up. I made it to 250 days. Um,
That's
and
crazy.
yeah, it was crazy. And it was funny. I was about to kind of quit or shift my schedule to not every day, around like maybe 200. Um, and then I posted a song about how white babies are the ugliest babies,
Oh,
and I
that's some
included my own ugly white baby picture in the song. And it was just a very silly sort of throwaway song. I mean, I was doing a song a day. Not all of them were going to be bangers.
yeah.
And for about like 4 days, that song did fine. People in the comments were either responding with, "Don't say that, all babies are beautiful," or "Don't say that, all babies are ugly." It was just very lighthearted. And then somehow that song made it onto neo-Nazi Twitter. And
What an accomplishment.
yes, I started to receive death threats and a lot of hate and doxing attempts, and they
Whoa.
found my family and sent
Whoa.
them death threats, and someone photoshopped like a bullet through my forehead and made an account on Instagram, and it just sort of spread in this way where I immediately wanted to not be on social media at all anymore, but I thought, well, I can't let the Nazis win. So I kept posting for another couple months every day until most of the hate went away. And then eventually I decided to wrap it up at 250. And then I went through all the songs and I took the best ones and I recorded those and released an album. But it's certainly something that like I went through a lot of phases with of like
Oh, I can
really not
imagine.
wanting to and dealing with all different sorts of comments and navigating what my boundaries were with social media and how much of my life I wanted to share versus my songs. And also like having some fun with it of just viewing it as like a science experiment of like what video does well, what if I posted at this time, what if it starts like this, um, which like I think I every time I get into a run of posting to promote a show now I have to get back into that science experiment mindset because otherwise you just end up going, well, this video didn't do well, and my that amount of that like count is directly related to my value as a human being, and it just starts to really affect your self-worth and your body image issues and get inflamed and all of this stuff that I just go, you know what? It's about the video. I'm not the video. Did this
Yep.
video do well? You know that video didn't do well. Cool. Well, let's try it a different way. Let's start it a different way. Let's add subtitles. Let's post it at a different time. It's I got to turn it back into a science experiment to have fun with it again.
One, very proud of you. One, Nazis, hilarious. I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but also hilarious that you got a Nazi story. You don't hear that every day. But also for you to go through all this awareness and realize it's not necessarily you or your work. There's an
Hmm.
algorithm, there's different times, there's so
Yeah.
many different things that come into play. And realizing that you as a person and your doubts and insecurities are not or don't need to be validated by, the algorithm. Very cool. There's a big journey there.
Yeah.
And what was it like? I'm sure there also would have been a bit of burnout, not only from the negative comments, but
Yeah.
and the Nazis, which is just as ridiculous to say out loud.
So wild.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your Nazi story? Well, I got a few.
Yeah.
When you stopped posting, what was that moment like? Like a bit of a breather? You've done what getting a comedy album out of it is crazy. I'm sure you didn't even think
Mhm.
of that. So many positives. Was it just now I need time to kind of recuperate and rest?
Yeah. And it was around the time of like the 2020 election. Was it around there? Maybe I made it through the election. No, I made it through the election. But there was like just a lot of stuff to be talking about on social media. And then I just needed a break. And that break felt really good. But then I did have a couple like start and stops with trying to figure out a healthy way to be posting in a regular way. Um, it took a while to get back into a flow and it still does. I'll get back from a tour and I won't post for a couple weeks and that feels great. And I go, why do I even need to? I like living my life in person, not on a screen. And then I go, oh, right, I gotta get my art out there and this is a helpful tool. And it's why I have a career in the way that I do it all. And so it's a relationship that's ever changing. But yeah, I mean, I just have to keep approaching. Oh, speaking of collaborators, David Zucker is a good friend of mine and someone that helped me through that process where he
Right.
used to work for TikTok and has just helped a lot of he's a great, artist in his own right, but he has helped a lot of performers sort of tackle social media from their perspective. And when I was grappling with all this, he made me this spreadsheet where I could track what like how each video started the first 2 seconds and what hashtags I was using. And
Oh,
we really did treat it like a science experiment where I had data. And so I could go, hey, it's not that this video isn't doing well. Actually, the percentage of the people watching it really like it, or the comment level is really high, the share amount is really high. And I can look at that and go, okay, there's something here. Maybe it was just, okay, maybe I posted it at a weird time. Or, maybe I need to change the first 2 seconds of the video, or it just he opened this door for me that made it not so connected to my self-worth.
I like that. That's kind of an outside perspective. It's not you.
Hmm.
This is the data. Let's approach it from that way. You don't
Yeah.
need to take it on. That's I'm going to apply that advice as well.
Yeah.
I also find it also super interesting. You've got a very interesting mindset and view on life. I find it very contagious, but how kind of everything kind of links to each other. And we've kind of,
Mhm.
if there was like a mind map, we could see how one thing's led to another, which led to
Absolutely.
another. And just a very quick snapshot. I think at college you studied art history and photography, which has obviously
Mhm.
helped for the writing on the store. You
Yeah.
then go to Chicago, you do Teach for
Mhm.
America, and I think
Mhm.
you're still doing comedy there, and you go through the stuff that we've spoken about. You then move to New York, and then I think you go to
Mhm.
UK and you do your master's, which
Yes.
is in alignment. Was your master's in graffiti or something like?
In the show, I conflate it with my undergrad degree because I wrote my undergrad thesis
Oh,
on
that's right.
graffiti and bathroom graffiti. But actually, my master's at Oxford was in maritime
Oh,
archaeology,
yeah.
which was a oh, one of my cats is meowing down here. Okay, hello, yes. Yeah, so I basically like got into Oxford at a time when I was still dealing with a lot of stage fright.
Yeah.
And I had started scuba diving and I was doing underwater photography and I was studying history. Oh, hello.
I love that. I want to see the cat. Yeah,
Here's the kitty.
very cute.
His name is Max. Um, he joined us for sound healing last night.
The tea as well.
No, that'd be crazy. Um, but yeah, Oxford was really interesting in that I was combining a lot of my passions at the time, which I still deeply care about, art history, travel, scuba, photography, but ultimately it was right around when I was getting over my stage fright and I finished the master's program and they asked if I would do the PhD and I looked around at all my colleagues and I thought, wow, you guys are spending all of your spare time going to lectures and applying for grants and doing research and I'm spending all my spare time like getting on stage and telling dick jokes and searching for bathroom graffiti and forming a band. I found a musicology major and used the Oxford music studios and all their equipment to record a couple EPs way back then. And I went, there's something. The way I'm using my time is not like the way you guys are using your time. And I
Yeah.
think I think I should like move back to New York and give performing a real shot. And I can always go back and do the PhD. And I have been in New York ever since. So
That is wild. It's kind of similar to me. I was, doing accounting and I would never read the business section. I would read everything else. And then some of my colleagues would be reading it or have like the financial review. And my dad would be like, if you're going to be doing this, you show no interest whatsoever. Why are
mhm.
you doing this? And I was
Yeah.
like, you're right. And then I shortly left. But isn't it also interesting, going back to that full circle moment where you've got the interest in the photography, graffiti, and then you have this show which is so unique, the writing on the stalls where you collect you say it, you say it better than me.
I've photographed bathroom graffiti for over a decade now, and every song in the show, all the lyrics in the song are from bathroom graffiti. So the pictures of the graffiti are projected behind me as I sing what's written on the wall that become the lyrics, and each song has a kind of theme. There's a song that's men's versus women's versus unisex bathroom stalls. There's a song that's all the sad, poetic, poignant things people have written. There's a song, probably the biggest song of the show is called Conversations with Strangers, and it's a song based off of people responding to each other on the walls of a bathroom.
I love
Um,
it.
yeah, it's a fun show and it's a found art show, and it's also woven into that is my story um and a lot of like the sorry, one second.
No sorries needed.
Oh yes, I broke the rule.
Yeah.
Um yeah, it's a really unique show in that like it's still growing. The pre-show changes all the time because people send me new graffiti and I get to incorporate sometimes I'll build the whole pre-show around graffiti I found in the city that I'm touring through.
Oh,
Um And obviously there's a lot of crowd work in the show, so the audience makes the show different every night. But it's really centered around bathroom graffiti and the things that we write when we are anonymous and vulnerable, whether we want to be funny or whether it's an opportunity to be honest or whether we're trying to elicit a reaction from someone else. I think there's something really deeply interesting about this art form that has existed as long as humans have existed and yet is considered very lowbrow or not even art at all and is often overlooked.
I agree. And I think, did you say it's called Conversations with Strangers? What a powerful song. And I've heard all that I could hear. They're amazing and so unique. And I'm glad that you moved in this direction because there's no type of comedy like this. And what's it like receiving, I would assume, so many messages a day or a week of bathrooms?
It's very funny. The comment that I get the most frequently after shows is I will never go to the bathroom the same way again, which is very hilarious. I love that. And yeah, I do get like hundreds of DMs a day, depending on,
Jesus.
how much a video is blowing up of people sending me bathroom graffiti. And it's so different across the board. Sometimes it's graffiti in other languages. Sometimes it's something I've seen a million times before, but it's, someone else's handwriting. So it's become this sort of trope. Sometimes it's something unique that I haven't ever seen before. And it's really cool now that like when I wrote the show, I wasn't big on social media. So all the graffiti in the show is stuff that I found. Whereas now, people have sent me so much that I'm like starting to work on a show that is like an ensemble version of this solo show where it's a small ensemble musical of like maybe it's like 6 to 8 people, and it's about the individual stories behind one piece of graffiti, of why did someone write that thing one day and what is their story and how does it interweave with the other regulars at the bar. And I get to make that because people have sent me so much graffiti that I have millions more images to write more new songs, and they have gotten to contribute to that. So, I want to write a Conversations with Strangers Part 2 that is literally from conversations I've had with strangers sending me graffiti of other people
Genius.
talking to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How cool, and also how collaborative as well. It's not often where you can get that much input as well and actually use it for a song. This might be a complicated question. What's the process of saying, oh, I want to put this here or put this before or this after? Because, there's generally a line max. How do you kind of decide the order? I know you would have played and mixed and changed. Is there a process there?
Initially, for this first batch of songs, I had gone through all the graffiti that I'd photographed that I thought was worthy of a song lyric, and I sorted them into folders. One was like, there's some that haven't made it into any show at all, but there was one that was like, these people sound like they're high. These are the high thoughts. There's one that's there's a whole folder full of quotes that are misattributed that I've used a couple of them. There's one that's smoke meth, suck cock, George Washington. And there's one that's Abraham Lincoln. That's big tits can't make up for a small ass, but a big ass can't make up for small tits. Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah,
And
classic
there's a whole
Abraham.
folder full of just misattributed quotes, and like I wonder if that will eventually become a song. It was certainly easy to sort the Conversations with Strangers because I was like, here's 2 different handwritings, and someone has a witty comeback, and okay, I'm gonna do that. But then when it comes time to like opening up the folder and writing the song itself, it's different every time. It's what instrument do I feel like writing it on? What is the rhythm of this song? What is the melody line I'm hearing in my head? Does this piece flow into it? Okay, no, it doesn't. Does this kind of rhyme? How do I get it to track well? It's just balancing all of that stuff.
Very cool. And I think you might have some shows, or you always do it in New York, and then there's the UK, especially Edinburgh. How do people check it out?
So my website is thecaitlyncook.com, as are all of my social media handles. And I'm constantly posting on social media about upcoming shows, and then you can buy tickets on my website there.
And Edinburgh shows is very exciting as well. How are you feeling for
Yeah.
it?
I'm excited. It's gonna Edinburgh is always different and there's always a new challenge. And what's cool about this one is I'm just doing the second half of the month and shows are selling really well already. And then I'm doing a week in London right after, and that's almost entirely sold out. So
Wow.
it'll be different this time. I don't know if I'll need to flyer that much and really like promo, which is my least favorite part of any
Yeah,
of this,
I can
for
imagine.
sure. So I'm really excited about that. Um, but yeah, I'm also just aware that there's going to be challenges along the way, as there always is. And I'm excited to go to Edinburgh and feel like I don't have to worry so much about my show. I know it works. I know it's good. I'm not writing it in the process of Fringe, which I've definitely done before. I know people are going to show up, and I'm also just excited to like see a bunch of old friends I haven't seen and go see their shows and soak in everything that Fringe has to offer.
Cool. Well said. I'm very excited for you. All of that will be in the episode notes below so people can buy tickets. Um, I reckon what we're going to do to wrap up the podcast is to do a quick rapid fire segment. So the first thing that
Let's do it.
springs to mind, but please, you can take your time actually, and I'm not going to comment on them because I'll derail them. And
Okay,
yeah, ready to rumble.
let's do it.
What are you most proud of?
This show.
I said I wouldn't
Yeah.
comment, but that's cool.
I think, sorry if this is not part of the rapid fire thing, but I think this show is the most me thing I've ever written. It's music, it's comedy, it's theater, it's bathroom graffiti, it's silly, it's conquering fears, it's my story. It's it's very me. And I'm really, really proud that it's come so far.
I love that. And it goes back to your, I know I said I wouldn't comment, but going back to your story of how everything relates to the next thing, it's so nice
Mhm.
because it's so fleshed out as well. So good for you.
Thank you.
What's been your special ingredient to work all these years?
Oh, wow. Special ingredient to work all these years. I want to say like journaling or songwriting actually. Not songwriting in the sense of writing for an audience, but like writing my feelings into songs and journaling lyrics. That always helps me get through any negative emotion or discomfort or sadness or grief or even like happier moments. I just feel like if I can put it all into a song or write it down, that I can get through it.
Very cool. I think, I don't know if you still do it, but I think you said you write a page of stream of consciousness lyrics a day.
Yes,
Tell me
yes.
more about that.
Yeah, it's something that I go in and out of practice of, but I really enjoy doing it. I have a journal, I have a page, I just write. It doesn't have to rhyme, it can rhyme. I just have to keep writing and not edit in the moment. And that's really exercising this muscle that when I get, when I do actually want to sit down and write a song, when I get the inspiration, I can go back and look through this journal and go, oh, look at all these lyrics I already have. Look at all this work I already did. Look at how this muscle of trying to write in the moment isn't atrophied because I just practiced it every day.
Cool. What would you do if you knew you cannot fail?
Oh, wow. If I knew I could not fail. What a question. I guess I would, I would write a Broadway musical. Yeah. I've always wanted to do that. I feel like I'm on my way to that with this show and the expansion of this show into an ensemble piece, and I just think there's a lot of lazy shows out there lately. And I want to write something different and unique and special. And if I couldn't fail, which many Broadway shows do, so many Broadway shows do, I would do that.
I look forward to seeing it when I'm next in America.
Fantastic.
Um, if you could give advice, any advice you want to give to people who want to try something different or new, but perhaps a bit fearful of doing so?
Just do it. Just do it. Like literally, what's the worst that can happen? If it's trying something new, and the worst that can happen usually is that you don't like it and you learn something new about yourself. It is worth getting over that little bit of fear and just giving it a go. You can always stop. You can always decide this isn't for me, or I don't like it, or it's too hard, or it is too scary, but give it a go. Try it.
Well said. And before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you, what is the one question I should have asked you?
Oh wow. I wish I had a better answer. Maybe what did I eat for breakfast today?
And what did you eat?
I ate some blueberry pancakes.
Oh,
Mhm.
talking about like risk. I'm too scared to start my day off with sugar. Otherwise,
Oh,
I'm so worried about what I would be. Like, because all I would want is the pancakes.
yes. Well, if it's helpful, my fiance has celiac, so it was like a gluten-free,
Nice.
veganish type healthier pancake.
That's
Still sugary though.
my fiance has put me on I'm half joking, a diet for our wedding. And so I can't even have the pancakes. And she'll say, no, I'm doing it, but we'll agree to disagree. But
Oh
it's
no.
oh, amazing. And before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
So my handle on everything is the Caitlin Cook. Caitlin is spelled the Irish way, Caitlin. And that's where I post about upcoming shows and I post new songs and sometimes have a little fun and treat it like a little science experiment. So follow me there or find tickets on my website, thecaitlincook.com.
Brilliant. Thank you. I said it and I want to say it again. You've got a very inspirational way of looking at things and I love this comfort
Thank you.
zone mindset. You are great. And yeah, thank you so much for chatting with me.
Thank you. This was a really, really fun time. I really
Thank you.
appreciate coming on this podcast. I've done the same questions over and over and over again on a lot of these things, and you're not asking the same ones. I had a great time.
I love how Caitlin talks about her motto or life philosophy in that she tries to do what scares her. Often in life, when we want to progress or level up, so to speak, we can allow fear to take over us and prevent us from moving forward. Caitlin explains how once she identifies the fear, she looks to tackle it head on. For example, she was scared to get up on stage, so she did open mics every day, or how she was scared to interact with the audience, so she incorporated it into her shows. I love this mentality because it shows us that success can be on the other side of fear and how often what scares us won't kill us and will make us stronger by facing it head on. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. If it is both terrifying and amazing, then you should definitely pursue it. Errata. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.